Yeah, boss, we got big problems. You better call that robot, that spot show. It's Spotbot. Anybody got 20 on that spot bot? ETA ASAP. Over.
Morning, YouTube. What's going on today? 5:12 a.m. Leaving the shop at 6:30. We're gonna hop in the bed truck and drive to Wetaskiwin and do a little bit of yard organization at CHD, which is weird. I thought they said the bed truck was going to go there a long time ago. Maybe everybody was too busy because we've been still on our crunch of cleaning up year-end stuff. I think it's possibly slowed down a little bit now, which would be great, because man, am I tired of nights. And then, as soon as there's nothing at night, you're back on days. And it's not midday, so it's not like you get to sleep in or anything. Which yesterday morning wasn't too bad. We went just an hour outside of town to Alhambra, and we wheeled a service rig just up to Rocky Co-op Cardlock, which was fun. That was super easy. Minus the brand new booster was dog tracking the whole trailer because nobody looks at that stuff. So I had to use I didn't really notice it until I turned on to the road that we were loading at Alhambra, and I'm like, dude, this thing is dog tracking. And showed up to where we lay down on the road to load the service rig. I go to the back of the booster to let the hydraulics down and dump the air and stuff, and I'm like, yep, one tire is cockeyed, just enough, a little bit. And then once I laid down on the ground and pulled away from it, the trailer was like sideways in its lane enough where it was pointing towards the ditch. I was like, for fuck's sakes. I'm like, that looks super stupid. And plus, you're back in a service rig on it, and you have to hug the one side of the road and back onto it. So once it was loaded, it was fine, obviously, with all the weight. I had the same problem with the double drop when I hauled that crate. I'm like, what is going on here? But it wasn't until I made like one major turn where it was like, I'm like, this thing is dog tracking. Of course, once it was loaded, it was fine. I grease got in my truck, and I throw grease at it. It's been through the shop. It just got recent CVIP. So then what? And they're like, well, we don't have a way to check that. I'm like, there is a way to check it. You fucking jack it up, you take the stabilizers off, and you fucking turn that shit by hand. If you can't turn it by hand, it's got issues. And I've been through this before. Been three of us on the end of a big chunk of square tubing, turning the tires left to right, left to right, left to right, greasing, left to right, left to right, left to right, greasing. I did that at Road Train because it had things happen in life, right? And the wheelers kind of sit and get salty, and then, winter's hard on them. I get it. But we just bought this one that we used with the service rig, just came from the auction or wherever we bought it. So I'm like, well, how nobody looked like obviously they went through it, they checked stuff, but like I said, they're like, we don't have a way to check that. I'm like, well, it's already gone out a few times, nobody noticed a problem. So that's two boosters, two different scenarios where I was fucked. Last time I was by myself. I nosed down the double drop, I was on ice. I was chain and boomerang and a snap boomer trying to get it to turn, and with the chain around my cat bar, and it wasn't really working, but I was able to get the cat bar in between the steering arm, or the big part, kingpin, and the frame, and just be able to like, because I was on ice. But yesterday there was no ice, but it didn't even budge. When it didn't lock, when I came into the card lock loaded with the service rig, it didn't lock. So under all that weight, I don't think it was probably steering straight because I have all that weight on all the trailer, right? It wasn't trying to fight it. But when I went to pull away from unloading, and my pilot guy, not that it's his fault, but he's like, yeah, everything from inside the pilot car, it looks like it's straight. It's hard to tell. And then after we unloaded, picked the trailer back up, I'm like, oh, it's not locked. And it's still cockeyed a little bit. I'm like, God damn it. Pull out from the co-op. We're right beside Paderni's, about to pull out onto Highway 11, and it's like sideways. I'm like, for fuck's sakes. So literally, like, stared at it. I lifted up the whole trailer, which I don't know why I was thinking that was going to do anything, because it didn't straighten out with the service rig on it. I tried a few things, whatever I could, and then finally we put the pilot car on it. I put a chain around both rims, well, the middle of the rim, and back to the eyelet on the front of the bumper of the F350. Told Barry, put her in 4-low and take a pull on it, and he did, and it just went, and it locked, chink, and I was like, yeah, that's where it's staying. And then I'm on the phone. Yo, got another pile of shit I'm bringing in. There's nothing really wrong with the booster. It's just, I don't know what to tell you. Just tired of having issues with stuff. And then one of our mechanics is quitting. I'm like, fuck. That's great. Not that we don't have more mechanics, but yeah, I'm not gonna get into that. on top there by the poles. Yeah, just rest it against the poles on top. Right up top there, yeah. Kick it in a little bit. More. Yep.
here.